So next, I'm going to be introducing two panelists. The first is Azita Ardakani. And Azita is the founder of Love Social. And she founded Love Social using her background in sociology and applying the lens of human drivers to her online marketing career. And staying committed to Love Social's mandate of authentic marketing strategies, she has forged a new kind of entrepreneurship, which mixes profits with purpose. And she is actually the youngest female founder of a B Corporation, which is a new type of company which uses business to solve social and environmental problems. And the second panelist I'm going to introduce is Todd Moscowitz, who is a founder of 300 Entertainment and also works with Azita on Love Social. And before 300, he was co-president and CEO of Warner Bros. Records. In 2009, he joined as executive vice president there and was responsible for the expansion of the label's urban roster. Before that, in 2004, he was president of Asylum Records, where he pioneered innovative new business models that quickly established the label as the premier destination for independent entrepreneurs looking to release their music worldwide. So please join me in welcoming them to the stage. Hi, nice to meet you. Thank you both so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
So, both Love Social and 300 Entertainment are really harnessing new trends and technologies to rethink industries that we've had around for a while, that are sort of ripe for redefinition. And I wonder if you can each talk a little bit about the shifts you're seeing in your industries and how your companies and yourselves are adapting to them.
Todd, kick it off.
All right. For us, I mean, I think the trends are probably fairly obvious, but we're seeing a huge movement towards streaming subscription. I think that's, everybody kind of acknowledges that's the future of the business. We're kind of halfway through the stream on subscription. But if we don't get to the other side of it and get to scale, I think it'll be a much smaller business. But so far, all the signs look really positive. As much as physical and digital track sales are declining, subscriptions growing at a really healthy pace right now. And then in terms of communication, I think, obviously social media has become an enormous part of kind of our day-to-day marketing and promotion efforts. The interesting thing is that in the past, I think artists and labels never really had a direct relationship with their consumer. Tickets were sold through Ticketmaster, records were sold through Best Buy. It's a very new relationship now, and one that I think we're kind of constantly trying to readapt to and adjust to. But it's dramatically changed where we spend our money, where we spend our time on a daily basis in terms of breaking artists.
Yeah, and it's probably similar. I mean, very different industries, so music and communications, but similar. Traditional advertising was a model where you would just speak at and to your consumer, and now it's obviously a very porous conversation where you're participating with your community and figuring out if you're on track or totally off track.
So, Azita, last night you told me a little bit of your story and sort of how you saw this change in social media and this conversation and really more the possibility of this conversation before a lot of other people. And I wonder if you can tell that story to everyone.
Sure. So my personal background's in sociology, and I always wanted to do something that was in the different spacing or good doing space. And when social media was born, it was the perfect way to scale that impetus. So Love Social was really born out of this idea that traditional advertising was fear-based. It was born out of the Industrial Revolution and too much stuff. So manufactured need was really advertising for a long time. And then social media took that model out of it. You couldn't really manufacture need to people that were living in spaces that they were communicating with their peers and their family. You can't just kind of intersect there with something they don't want. They'll just hide you or put you away. And I loved that opportunity to use that as a Trojan horse to work with corporations and get in there and figure out the soul searching of what makes them inherently so valuable that would make a consumer or an audience want to connect with them.
And Todd, how is social media playing into the way that you find talent, the way that you, and then the way that talent interacts with fans?
It's interesting. I mean, it's become incredibly democratic, obviously. Artists have way more of an ability to go much further down the road on their own than they used to. So a lot of our job has become being sensitive to that and kind of trying to find things that are already getting traction and reacting because consumers have already acknowledged it. It's dramatically changed the relationship between the artist and the label, because it used to be the artist really needed the label from a very early stage to go and find that audience. Now they're finding it, and we're kind of chasing them and trying to, explain the value that we can bring to the relationship, as opposed to us kind of picking and choosing and anointing who was going to be next. And I think it's actually a really healthy thing. So in terms of sourcing, it's changed it dramatically, and we've obviously, done a deal with Twitter recently to kind of, use their data to do this in a hopefully more efficient way and go a little bit deeper than we could go without having access to the data. So, we're as open as possible to the technology in an industry where I think we've been a little bit schizophrenic in the past. And sometimes technology was our friend, sometimes it was our foe. We weren't sure if it was helping or if it was leading to the piracy, if it was a way to source artists or if it was just empowering them in a way that was, was making our job more difficult. I think for 300, we are just jumping in 110% with our arms open and just trying to figure it out on the fly and partnering with as many people as we can, like Twitter, to just to embrace it and see what we can use it for. In this case, I think we are going to find some artists that we wouldn't have otherwise bumped into earlier. So far, so good.
That all flows nicely into a question we have from the crowd, which is also for Todd. And the question says, the music industry may have been better known for excess than, quote, social good. And what led you from there to here? And I guess how social good plays into this new vision of a music company that you have.
Well, I mean, I think as a label, you're really there to support your artists. The artists are really the brand, and social media has only made that kind of more obvious. From the artist perspective, I think artists are a megaphone. They amplify messages because of the access that they have and the relationship that they have with forget about even consumers, but just with people in general and access to the media and everything else. I think that social media has, as an amplifier, given them an opportunity to do things that they haven't been able to do in the past, particularly with causes. So I think it used to be that you'd have to be a pretty huge artist to be able to send a message in a meaningful way. I think now, whether it's through things like Pledge Music and other platforms that give artists access to raise money and give some of it to charity, or just through the voice that they have, artists at even a sort of beginning level can find an audience and then use that as a platform to get their message out about things that are important to them, which quite often are cause-based things. So I think that's been a dramatic change in the last 10 years.
To what extent do each of you see millennials as digital natives, as people who are from this social media world guiding the changes that are happening in your industries?
I don't like the word millennial very much, and did we talk about this last night? Did I allude to this? Am I doing everything all wrong by saying that? I don't know. I might not get invited back, but whatever. So millennials are tricky because they're just a segment of an audience that was born in a certain time and place, which definitely is defined based on the technology trends and the historical placement and all the things that happens in that. But for me, I'm much more interested in psychographics. Like I always use the example of when the iPhone rolled out, there was 85-year-olds that got it right away, and there was 13-year-olds that wouldn't touch it. And it's really, psychographic is a series of beliefs and mindsets and values, and that's what I'm much more interested in. So for me, the millennial psychographic is something that's actually carried with people in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and I hope that we start to treat it as more of kind of a behavioral set and a perspective than necessarily, because it actually diminishes the segment of the audience that can participate in a lot of the millennial type trends, which are very human and much broader. I don't know if I answered your question at all, but there you go.
Todd, do you have anything to add on this question of how, whether it's millennials a mindset, not necessarily an age group, or specifically a 30-ish and below age group is influencing music?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, they're hugely influential. I mean, I agree with Azita. I think that it's more about a mindset, but there's a certain group of people that have always been people that wanted to push the envelope, whether we call them tastemakers or the overused term of being, disruptors, whatever you want to refer to them as. They're the ones who are kind of pushing us to the edge of and testing the boundaries of what's okay. But by doing that, it's forcing everybody to adapt. So there's probably a positive and a negative to that, because it often happens at a rapid pace and without a lot of rules and everything else. And by bumping into the walls, you find out where the corners of where the fence is. But it pushes everybody along, and certainly, I've never seen a time in our business, and I think probably in many other businesses, where things change so rapidly, and it's all being pushed by these people. I feel like we're doing a reset every 3 to 6 months about what's a priority, what's important, where people have moved, where people's mind share has gone. It's a constantly evolving thing, and evolving and iterating way, way more quickly than it ever has in the past, and it's all driven by this group of people.
Well, we have at least one person who says, I agree with Azita, re-millennials, thank you. And another question here that says, social media, starting with MySpace, has changed music, discovery, and distribution. How are you going to continue to change music by making social media a focus of your new label? And you touched on a lot of this in an earlier answer, but I wonder if there's anything to add there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that social media is a platform that lets people have a relationship, and people talk a lot about things are so much better now because it's democratic and it's transparent. The reality is it's a double-edged sword, right? And in a relationship, especially a new relationship, and this is a new thing, it's all about boundary setting to make the relationship healthy. And I think you see that on a constant basis with the artists, where people have an expectation now that they're going to have access to absolutely everything whenever they want it. And I think it's our job and the artist's job to help set the boundaries and be super clear about it. Yes, I want to serve your needs as a consumer. Yes, I want to give you access to the things that you want. Yes, I want to be involved with you and have a one-on-one relationship. Yes, I want to allow you to be a tastemaker. But that doesn't mean that you can know every aspect of everything that's going on in my life at every point in time. And if I have a baby, I may want to keep that private for a minute. It's all about establishing that relationship. So I think a part of our job as this evolves is working with the artists to help them shape the relationship with their consumer.
So as I was reading up on both of you to prepare for this, I came across sort of
in our industry,
parallels.
we call that creeping.
In my industry, I call it reporting.
Research, yeah.
So,
as you were.
Which may be creeping, but so it goes. So I've read that you always have, Azita, that you always have clients start with a manifesto. And similarly, I read, Todd, that it took 6 weeks to write the 300 mission statement. And so I first would want to check my facts and make sure my sources are good there. And then if these are accurate, if you could explain what the role of this sort of core manifesto or mission statement plays in a modern organization.
For us, it started off that way probably because I didn't have a lick of agency background, and the only way that as a working with brands and organizations I could begin, it wasn't with the platforms first or their strategy or their campaign coming out of the gate. It was soul searching, and there's nothing better than a series of questions, one of which is, if you were to cease to exist tomorrow, would anybody care? That really makes a brand or organization look at itself and be like, wait, where are we really adding value? Where are we differentiated in this space? And who would notice if we didn't exist? And through that, you come out with a series of words that are used internally or externally, but act as an anchor and something that you can rally around. And that really is a great starting ground to start informing everything. And it's hopefully there's more mission or legacy-based companies that believe in something bigger than just their products. I know that it helps employees understand why they show up every day, why they're leaving their kids sometimes at home, or why they work overtime or whatever. A mission statement or a manifesto can give so much more purpose, and it's a great way to kind of really refine your value.
Can you give an example of a great manifesto from one of the companies you work with, or others of them?
Yeah, we worked with actually NPR when we were working with them on Generation Listen to kind of create a series of words that would help define internally, especially what it meant for a new audience to engage in radio and really storytelling, and that was deeply meaningful. But yeah, we do it across the board with all our clients.
Yeah, I think a sign of a great organization is when everybody in the organization from top to bottom can kind of articulate in a very similar way what's important, for us, who each artist speaks to and what they represent. And you can tell when an organization is really clicking like that, and there's no question kind of what's on the rails and what's off. But I think particularly in the social media age, where notwithstanding whatever kind of the human resource restrictions are at every company, whatever, people are interacting way more, and they are a voice of your company, whether you want to be or not. You can't really entirely control that. The mission statement, I think, is at least a way of everybody speaking in the same way about your company. Mm-hmm. And if you do it well, they're proselytizing people in the way that you would hope to do it yourself. I also think that it's just going back to kind of the boundary setting thing and setting a relationship, it sets the message with your consumer about what's important to you and what they can expect from you, so that when they over-expect, you can say, hey, but this is really what we're about. And when they under-expect, you can kind of hold yourself responsible and say, hey, maybe I did under-deliver. This is what I said I'm going to do, and now I know where I'm going. So I think they're really important.
What are the mission statements at each of your companies?
Ours is like 2 long paragraphs, and we have 3 minutes and 18 seconds, so I'm not going to say the whole thing, but you can get a good sense at lovesocial.org.
Sounds good. Quick summary, Todd?
Yeah, I think for us, when we really boiled it down, it was about rewarding risk and empowering artists, especially those who are already taking on so much themselves. In a business where traditionally, no matter how much the artists kind of or the independent labels put into their own projects, ultimately they got to a point where they went to a label, and a label said, okay, here's the deal, sign it. We came up with a different economic model that was intended to reward people for the risk that they were taking themselves, and we said, hey, you've already taken the ball halfway down the field, let's be partners. Mm-hmm. You should share in what we should share. We should win together and lose together, and it's that's kind of the core of most of our relationships with our artists and labels.
So a very popular question we have here is that there are tons of, quote, social media experts out there, and especially in the impact space. And this is a question that was aimed at you, is, what makes Love Social different? How do you differentiate it? And then I'd also wonder, Todd, what you saw that made you want to work with her and Love Social.
Maybe you should start with that.
Oh, I mean, for me, it was a little bit of more of a personal mission. It was something that I was really interested in, but was only touching tangentially through music. I was passionate about the cause space. I bumped into somebody who was living and breathing it every day, and it just seemed to match up. And I happened to have a bunch of friends who were doing things in the cause space who were themselves looking for help on the digital side. And I said, oh my God, you have to meet my friend. She's amazing at this. And it just kind of really naturally grew out of that. And then next thing we were like, hey, maybe we should, really try to do this in a bigger way. So for me, it just filled a lot. It checked a lot of boxes for me on just a kind of personal fulfillment level and personal interest.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see myself and I don't see Love Social necessarily as a social media expert. I think that social media really is a mirror to who you are and how people see you, and we help you find your truest self and tell that on platforms that exist. And today it's social, and then they're going to evolve and change as they already are. So, it's very much more of the human story that we're trying to tell, and the best mediums to tell those. So we don't define ourselves to just social media. I think it's whatever communication platforms make the most sense.
Well, we have not much time left, but a question that's risen pretty quickly is, why are your mission statements so long?
We had a lot of really good things to say.
For ours, it's a mixture of our belief system, and I think it's timing of when we came into this space. So knowing of the history that informed where Love Social is today, where we are now, and then what we really believe in for the future. So we're not just a communications agency because we are a Trojan horse that tries to come in there and make you better. So we stand for a lot of things, and our mission statement kind of has to embody a lot of different values.
Well, thank you both so much.
Thank you, Samantha.
Thank you.